Hey, this is Ronan, and hello from the beautiful mountains of Southern California. We are outside what will be the new Veneto West studio for the foreseeable future while we figure out what the heck is going on with my other studio that got destroyed. And yeah, it's been about 5 or 6 weeks since my last studio and home got demolished. And I'm trying to do some lessons from that might help some of your own kind of studio situations. Learn from my mistakes and what I've done right. And the last thing was about what I did right, which was about cloning hard drives, which has made this event so much less disastrous than it could have been. And today we're going to talk about insurance. But real quick, on a quick note, if you're watching this around the time that I post it, less than 2 weeks from now, we are doing the Song and Sound Retreat, 5-day all-inclusive retreat at a beautiful resort in the mountains, full of songwriting and recording workshops, and forgive the construction going on. But yeah, it's May 7th through 12th, and we have a few spots left, and it's an amazing event. So check out recordingretreat.com if you want more info about that. But back to the lessons learned. Insurance. So I need to say real quickly that obviously I'm a guy who's pretty good at making drums go boom on records. I have no expertise in insurance at all. So I'm just going to share with you some personal stuff that I've done and what I'm going through that might help. But please talk to a real insurance expert to verify anything that I tell you. So, insurance. There's a couple things that we can take away from all of this. The most important thing, and this is something that I've done right, is you need to keep in mind that if you make any money from your recording equipment or your guitars or your pottery equipment or anything like that, many homeowners or renters insurance policies will not cover that if you have a disaster like I did where you lose tons of equipment. So obviously the building I had was, the top floor was the studio. The second lower floor was my home, and a lot of equipment, and that's how I make my living. So one of the things I've done right is years ago, since about 1997, I keep a separate insurance policy for my music and studio equipment. So because that's how I make my living, and most insurance policies that I'm aware of for renting or owning a home will not cover that if you have a big disaster. So I've been with a company called Clarion Insurance that does musical instrument and studio insurance exclusively. This is my first claim with them, and I'm in the middle of it. So far they seem really nice, and I'm hoping it goes really well. But that's what I've been using. I think there are also policies you can get through the Musicians Union. I think NARAS, the Grammy organization, if you're a member of that, there might be some options available. But really consider, if you make any money at all from your home studio or your music gear, look into getting a separate policy for that in case your homeowners or your renters policy would not cover that in an emergency. So as a lot of my stuff got completely destroyed, I'm pretty grateful that I made that smart decision decades ago. The second thing to take away from this is when you do this, keep in mind that, it's really easy to itemize and go, oh yeah, here's my guitar, or here's this mic preamp. But keep in mind that if you have a big disaster like I did, or something like a fire or flood, that a lot of stuff can get ruined, and it's really easy to think, oh yeah, that guitar. But then you maybe don't think about, oh, that guitar cable, that capo, that polishing cloth, and all of those kinds of things. When you have a big disaster, they can really start to add up. Like patch bays. Like I've got patch bays for my studio and TT cables. Good TT cables, the little patch cables you use, are about $15 a pop. $15 isn't that much money, but 40 of them really starts to add up. So your mic cables, your stands, all of those different things add up. You might put your speakers on your insurance policy, but if you have a disaster, what about the speaker stands? So the number 2 takeaway from this is when you're creating your policy and itemizing that policy, which a dedicated insurance policy will most likely have you do, go in and itemize everything and really consider, if you had a big loss, what things, if you had to replace them, would really end up causing you financial difficulty. So as I'm going through my list, there's some things that I did right, and I'm like, oh, thank God I put those in there. And even just some other things, like I realized I didn't put capos on there. Again, capos aren't that much money, but when a giant tree crushes the cabinets where you keep all of your guitar accessories, losing 2 or 3 guitar capos and a dulcimer capo and my extra strings and all of those kinds of things, they start to add up. And because I'm a professional musician, those things are not covered under my homeowner's policy. All right, so number 3 is if you have vintage stuff or even new stuff, watch to see what the market does and update your insurance list every year based on what the market is doing. And I'm embarrassed to say that I'm sharing this as a thing I did wrong lesson. Because a lot of vintage things go up and down in the market. And one thing I lost, a beautiful keyboard that I lost, very volatile market. And years ago, I'd put it on the policy, for what it was kind of going for on the used market at that time. What it was going for on the used market this year is about $5,000 more. So yeah, it was completely destroyed. And, I just kind of every year, if I bought a new guitar or sold a preamp, I'd update, get rid of, add that guitar, get rid of the old mic preamp. But I wasn't doing a lot of, keeping things current with trends. And, I have some pretty cool vintage keyboards, but I've got some vintage mic preamps and other things that, have a volatile value. And just on that one alone, that mistake probably cost me about $5,000 on the insurance claim. So yeah, so keep that. But also too, on the other side of things, there are things like, if you've got a digital, cheaper effects box that, at one point might have sold for $500 on the used market, but now it's easy to find for $100 because it's a cheaper digital thing. You consider lowering that just to be able to keep your insurance premiums lower. The last thing, and embarrassing to say, but I'm doing this so you guys can learn from my mistakes. Watch for typos. So as I was going through assessing some of my gear, there was a typo in terms of the number on the value that I had insured one piece of gear. I'd insured it years ago. And again, like I said, I would just kind of go in, oh yeah, I sold this guitar, I bought this new EQ and make those changes. But I really wasn't going in and checking everything. And one of the values on a piece of equipment didn't have a 0 at the end that it should have had. Yeah. So I'm laughing because all my blood is Irish and we laugh at tragedy, but not having that 0 probably cost me about $10,000 in this event. Yeah. So yeah, not having that 0 is going to cost me about $10,000. Not tracking the value of that vintage keyboard, probably costing me $4,000 or $5,000. So just with these knucklehead administrative mistakes of not taking the time to do it, I might be out about $14,000 or $15,000 just on those 2 things. So the good news is I'm not a complete knucklehead and that I've been keeping this insurance policy going and updating different gear up and down on it. So it's not a big disaster, but again, just because I made these simple mistakes about administrative stuff, I took a hit. So so the short of it is, see if you do anything professionally with this, consider getting a dedicated policy. When you do that, consider everything, whether or not everything is of value, all your accessories, cables, etc. Consider putting those on the policy if you want to be able to recover those in the event of a really bad situation. Track the value of these things and every year update your insurance policy based on trends in the market. And don't be an idiot and miss typos that could cost you $10,000 or so. So anyway, that's it for now. And thank you everybody for all your amazing kindness and support that you've shown me in dealing with this. And we still have a lot of struggles ahead, but life is getting back into shape, and I'm just at a point where I'm just about starting to work again, which is a beautiful feeling. And and so I'll share a few more of these. Again, just lessons I've learned from my disaster that might help you if you sadly have to deal with your own. All right, so that's it. Have fun, stay focused on the music, and back up your data. All righty, bye.